And we are live here on Facebook. Good afternoon, everybody out there in the world. This is Jay Jones. I serve as the chair for the 1st Congressional District here in the state of Georgia. And we are doing the Georgia School State Superintendents, the Triple S, that's what I call it. We're getting involved with all the people who are ready to run to get in that position. It's a very vital position as far as the community is concerned, and making sure we get who's going to take care of our kids is very important. So we're glad that all 4 of them chose to be on our platform today. And without further ado, I'm going to turn this over to our conductors, our moderators for the day, Mr. Tyrone Johnson out of Wayne County Democratic Committee, and Mr. Patrick Kelsey out of here, Chatham County Democratic Committee. And without further ado, I'm gonna turn the show over to y'all and thank y'all for joining and tuning in.
Thank you, Jay. Again, good evening, everyone. Welcome to this evening's forum. This is being co-hosted by the Wayne County Democratic Committee, as well as the Chatham County Democratic Committee. Just a few little things to chime in with. There are a lot of different forums scheduled between now and the primary election. A few of the upcoming ones, we do have Senate and a House District forum here in Savannah for Senate District 2 and House District 163. Thursday, we have same place here on Facebook Live, the Insurance Commissioner Candidate Forum, followed shortly by the Secretary of State Candidate Forum. If you're not already familiar with the upcoming Liberty County and Evening Under the Oaks, that is Saturday. And then next Monday, we have another 1st Congressional District Candidate Forum, again, here in the Savannah area. You can check about all these on the CCDC website or our Facebook page. Either way, you can find out all that information. So I want to turn over to my co-host, Tyrone Johnson out of Wayne County. And Tyrone, take it away.
Thank you, Patrick. First of all, let me say good evening to each and every one of the candidates, and thank you so much for consenting to be with us today. We hope to have a fruitful discussion with you this evening. And I want to begin by basically having each of you to introduce yourselves. I will simply give a snippet about you, and I will turn it over to you at that point to introduce yourself. I'm going to begin actually with the first candidate I would like to call on is one who is actually a board member of the Cobb County School District and is also a dentist, and that is Dr. Jaha Howard. If you would, Dr. Howard, introduce yourself. Take 60 seconds, if you would, to introduce yourself to the audience.
Thank you so much, and I appreciate being here with you. I'm Dr. Jaha Howard. I'm proud to serve on the Cobb County Board of Education. I'm proud to serve as a pediatric dentist and business owner for over 11 years in our area. Grew up in Atlanta, Georgia. Howard University graduate a couple of times over, and just happy to be here in this great state. I'm running because we need leadership. We need someone with the backbone. And I know I have a minute, still introducing myself, but I want to make sure folks know that we're in dire need of leadership. And that's why I'm running. That's why we organize parents. That's why we start businesses. That's why we do everything that we do, because it all comes together for our kids. So thank you for having me.
Awesome. I didn't mean to cut in on you there, but since you said Howard and I'm a Morehouse alum, I couldn't help but take the opportunity.
Oh, okay. I knew it had to be something. Must have been. We got a lot of love for Morehouse, so I appreciate it.
And for Howard as well. Thank you so much for introducing yourself. The next person we're going to ask to introduce himself, he happens to be a lawyer from Decatur, and that is Attorney Curry Hitchens. So if you would at this time, please introduce yourself.
Hi, I am Attorney Curry Hitchens. I actually live in Atlanta. I do have a P.O. box in Decatur. That might be why you say Decatur. I live in Atlanta, and I am an attorney. I worked at Georgia Legal Services and Atlanta Legal Aid. But before that, I was a teacher. I taught 4th grade in Decatur, and also have taught English to people who are learning it as their second language. I also have a master's in children's literature from the University of Georgia, and then went on to law school at Emory to become an attorney when I decided that I wanted to do more for families and students in Georgia. So when I graduated law school, I worked at Georgia Legal Services so that I could do more, and I have been doing more. I have worked really hard to make sure people have benefits, to make sure people are getting what they need, to protect people who are victims of violence. And I also have worked really hard to help kids get services they need in schools when they have disabilities, and to make sure kids who are being kicked out of school due to school discipline are also represented, because sometimes, or actually a lot of times in my experience so far, schools get it wrong, and kids are kicked out who shouldn't be, who really should have had services provided to them instead of having them kicked out of school or sent to an alternative school. So I do that kind of work. Right now I have 3 cases in front of the Department of Education, which is where I would be the boss when elected. So I know about how the Department of Education works. I know about the laws in Georgia, how the policies work, especially in some areas which are in special education law and in school discipline law, but all the areas of law, basically, I have been tracking the laws as they've been coming down. And the reason I'm running is because of all the pretty terrible laws that did pass this year in Georgia, to ban teaching divisive topics, for example, to make it easier to ban books. I know some weren't signed yet by the governor, but looks like they probably will be. And these are just a few of the examples of terrible laws that passed this year in Georgia that I want to fight against as superintendent of schools. And I want to make all schools great and also work on that funding formula.
Thank you so much. The next candidate who will introduce herself is a former charter school operator, as well as a state representative for Cobb County, and that is none other than Miss Alicia Thomas Searcy.
You almost got it right, Morehouse brother. Alicia Thomas Searcy.
Searcy.
But it's all good. I think to the earlier point, just remember all the S's: state, school, superintendent, Searcy, and you'll be good. I am Alicia Thomas Searcy. Pleased to be here with all of you this evening. Thank you to the Democrats for having us. I am a proud former state legislator. I'm the first African-American elected to the House from Cobb County, was elected at the ripe old age of 23 and served 6 terms. I spent most of my time while in the legislature working on education policy. Some of those laws passed and were promulgated by the Department of Education. I'm also, as mentioned, a former superintendent of a network of all-girls schools in the metro Atlanta area. When I walked into Ivy Prep, our elementary school had a 43 state CCRPI score. When I left, they had an 85. And so I know a lot about closing achievement gaps for students. I also know how to run school systems. I'm running because I am a champion for teachers, for students, and for parents. I'm also a mom of 3 school-age children, along with my husband, who is a retired state trooper after 26 years of service. And so what's, I think, most important for voters to understand tonight, and as you go to vote on May 24th, is that the state school superintendent is a policy job. And it's important to have someone who has legislative experience, also has experience as a superintendent, someone who has led schools and can do this job on day one. We don't have 5 years or 10 years to get it right. We only have right now. And so I'm running to make sure that we can have a state school superintendent who can lead on day one and can make sure that we create public school systems in our state that work for all of our children. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Searcy. I got it, Ms. Searcy.
Thank you, Morehouse brother. And I forgot to mention, which is also very, very important, that I am a Spelman graduate, class of 2000, and I also have a master's degree in educational leadership.
Awesome. Thank you, Ms. Searcy. Lastly, but not least, of course, is Mr. James Morrow Jr. Mr. Morrow is a social studies teacher in Clayton County. We're delighted to have him on tonight as well. And I asked right now that he would introduce himself.
All right, good afternoon, and good evening, and thank you for having me. As you said, my name is James Morrow. I've been a classroom teacher for the past 25 years. Some of the subjects that I've taught include advanced placement, United States history, advanced placement, human geography, economics, American government, and I currently teach physical education and health. That just happened this past, when we came back from Christmas break. My principal blessed me with that position. I was so happy. I also have 2 children that attend Cobb County schools. One is 7 years old and one is 14. In addition, I'm also the regional director for the Association of Professional Educators, which is located in Atlanta. One of the reasons I'm running is because of discipline. I'm in the trenches and I'm on the front line, and I see the issues that we have with many students. School is not school anymore. Right now, kids bring guns, knives. Just recently, a student was pistol whipped. A middle school student was pistol whipped on a school bus in Clayton County around 3 days ago. So it's a lot of violence and things that are going on. I feel like we need more money management skills in the schools, property ownership, business ownership. These things need to be taught to the students, in addition to vocational skills. Everybody is not college material. I've been teaching since 1997. I've taught in Little Rock, Arkansas, Las Vegas, Nevada, Atlanta Public Schools, and I've been in Clayton County since 2008. Plumbing. When I was in school, vocational skills, I learned how to change brake pads. I learned how to change oil. I learned how to weld. Even though I didn't go into that type of profession, I was still able to learn these skills. So I feel like these are some of the skills that need to be brought back if we want to help the kids. Also, we need to have some type of youth program to encourage positive behavior among youth, especially young Black males. So this is one of the reasons why I'm running. People always say, what can we do to retain teachers? Many times we have good quality teachers, but we have rogue administrators that give teachers bad evaluations based on how they feel about them rather than their performance in the classroom. So a lot of times people always say, what about the kids? But I'm an advocate for teachers. I'm on the front line, I'm in the trenches, and I feel like I would be a great leader when it comes time to replace Richard Woods. Thank you.
Awesome. I want to thank each and every one of you for your introductions, and that allows us to segue right into the heart of why we all are here today, and that is to hear from you regarding multiple issues and many of the issues that are on many of the citizens of Georgia. It's on their minds, and both Patrick and I will be presenting several questions to you, and I'm going to actually kick it off with the very first question of tonight. But even before I get into the question, I want to sort of give a framework here. I think it was Malcolm X who stated that education is the passport to the future, and the future belongs to those who are prepared for it. As a candidate seeking to become the superintendent of schools for the state of Georgia, your core responsibility is to make sure that the students all across the state of Georgia have an opportunity to possess the passport, to be able to possess the passport that will take them to their destiny. Understanding that the COVID pandemic created significant gaps in skill acquisition and academic knowledge and in overall grade performance of students, what would you, as superintendent of Georgia Public Schools, what would you do to address the matter? I ask that each of you, unless you are speaking, that you please mute your devices. And I would like to ask Ms. Cersei if she would take this question first.
Sure. The first thing that I want to say is my heart goes out to educators in particular and students who have experienced education in the last 2 years. Our teachers were woefully ill-prepared to teach virtually, didn't get the resources that they needed. And it's unbelievable to me, frankly, that in 2022 or 2020 or 2021, that our schools were not prepared to teach in a virtual environment. It just doesn't make sense. And so the last thing that we need to do is go back to things as usual prior to COVID-19 and prior to going through this pandemic. Second thing that I want to say is, how do we address it? We make sure that the resources that school districts received and the State Department of Education received are going to closing that learning loss gap. It's intense tutoring. It is providing additional support for teachers. It's making sure that they have additional curricular resources. I also think we ought to be creative with those funds rather than just doing after school or Saturday tutoring. Schools need to think about extending the school year. We also know what happens with summer loss, especially in lower income communities. But I also think we should be creative about who's doing the tutoring. I'd like to see districts hire other young people, high school students as an example, to provide tutoring to our younger students. It gives them job opportunities, but it also creates a peer-to-peer kind of opportunity for students to learn. What can't be lost is mental health services. We have to address the mental anguish that many of our students and frankly educators have faced over the last couple of years. We've not done enough in our school systems across the state to address this issue. And so it's intent support, it's tutoring, it's support for teachers, additional resources, both in school and at home for our students. It's empowering parents to make sure they, of course, are involved in that process. And it's also ensuring that we have strong mental health services, again, for both students and teachers.
Thank you, Ms. Searcy. Mr. Morrow, will you take it from there?
Yes, sir. Thank you. We're 2.5 years behind because of the pandemic. And I can tell you, when I was teaching AP, United States history, and the other advanced placement courses, we had students that didn't take it, in my opinion, they did not take advantage of the virtual classes. They had an opportunity to actually stay at home in the comforts of their room, basically in their pajamas in their bed, and they would log in just for roll call, and then they would log back out and go to sleep. So a lot of times you have students that have a 30 or 40%, and basically they were like all B students, but because of being able to be virtual at home, it made them lazy. So a lot of times grade inflation was a problem because we were asked to show compassion. So if a kid had like a 30 or 40%, we were basically asked to give them a 70 and pass them on. So that has happened for 2.5 years. And because of that, I feel like a lot of students are behind. Like right now, we have a shortage of teachers. So it's like, it's gonna be hard to catch up if we can't find any teachers. For example, in Fulton County, they have a shortage of 600 teachers. In Clayton County, we have a shortage of 200 teachers. Today, we had 3 teachers that were out. No subs covered the position. So they sent them all to the gym. So here I am having to watch my class in addition to 3 other classes all by myself. That's approximately 200 teachers. So until we find a way to make teaching more appealing to people where we can fill these positions, it's going to really be hard to catch up, because without any teachers, how can the students be taught? So we're going to have to find a way to encourage more people to enter this profession, because I can tell you, I've been teaching for 25 years. And if I just started 2 or 3 years ago, I probably would have been trying to find something else to do because of the discipline and the behavior of the students. Many times teachers, they're physically, mentally, emotionally, and verbally abused. So again, if you don't have teachers that are going to be in the classroom, how can we move forward with what needs to be done when it comes to the students? So again, my thing would be trying to make teaching more appealing and fill these positions. Then we will focus on seeing what we can do for the students and catch them up. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Morrow. Dr. Howard.
Thank you. I like to take a stab at that, just thinking about a framework of hard truth and hard work. Some hard truths that we learned is that and generally speaking, we weren't prepared for the pandemic. But also, which is true, is that we learned that public education can move, can be adaptable, can be flexible. After decades of things being done the same way, with this traumatic situation happening over the last couple of years, districts move their feet. And we can learn from that. We don't need to go backwards, we need to go forward, learn those lessons, and make sure that we are building on top of that. And my platform and my priorities have ideas about that. The other thing we learned, some hard truths, is that, look, we can't do everything on our own. This idea of everybody just stay in their lane and keep your head down, that's not getting us very far. We have to collaborate. We have to collaborate. And that's why it's important for people like me with a different type of vantage point as a business owner and organizing thousands of folks in the community. We know what the power is of groups coming together to make things happen. So when we're talking about early education, early literacy, taking a birth to 3rd grade approach, that means we have to work with pediatricians. That means we have to work with social workers. That means we have to work with our community groups and Head Start programs so that we make that on-ramp nice and seamless. So when they come in for kindergarten, they're ready to roll. And in the summertime, let's collaborate and learn some best practices from one another. I've learned that sometimes it's not that good ideas don't exist. They're just not talking to one another. Folks are just, everyone's in their silos, working hard. But if we work collaboratively, we can get things done. And sometimes, like right now, we need someone with a different type of leadership, and not only able to see the whole field, but in a way that do it with humility, knowing like, hey, I have not been an educator for 40 years. Guess what that puts me in a position of? It makes me listen better, more intently to our educators who've done it. And when I talk to superintendents with big districts and small districts, you know what they say consistently? They say, we don't need another 40, 50-year educator. We need someone with the backbone that's gonna make sure that our kids are a priority, make sure that our kids are the only special interest. And that's what we bring to the table. So I appreciate the question. And yes, we had some challenges, but we learned some things about what we're made of. And the future is very bright despite those challenges.
Thank you, Dr. Howard. Attorney Hitchens.
Hey, thank you. I think we have to look at things a little bit differently. We shouldn't be that worried about learning loss. I know it happened, but it happened to everybody, basically. The gaps were already there in learning before the pandemic. There were huge gaps already in learning because our schools were not equitable. Schools that are rich had more resources, a lot more resources in some cases, and were already better schools, and there were already gaps. I agree there are bigger gaps now. So what we need to look at is school funding. We need to make sure we redo the school funding formula so that we make schools equitable, which does not mean all schools get the same amount. It means schools that need more get more. If there's a school that's in a low-income area, that school probably needs more funding than other schools might need. So we need to make sure schools are funded equitably, and we shouldn't focus as much on learning loss and stress everybody out, which is never good for anybody, but we should actually focus on the mental health first. Make sure that students are in a good place and ready to learn, and so are teachers ready to teach. Make sure the buildings are in good repair. Make sure there's safety in the schools, because right now an actual problem that's happening that kids are not able to learn is because of a lot of violence in schools and in communities. It's not just in schools. I'm sure you know there was a shooting not long ago where several teenagers were shot in the Atlanta area, and they weren't in school. So it's happening in the communities all across the state of Georgia, actually across the country, but it's also happening in schools because of all the things we've gone through in the pandemic. And maybe it was the violence is rising before that as well, because it looks like there's research showing that increased screen time led to more violence in young people. And we increased their screen time even more during the pandemic, not just for school, because that was additionally screen time, and students weren't always looking at their class, like you heard Mr. Morrow say. They might have been doing something else on the screen potentially at the same time as being in class, which could also have led to them increasing their violent levels in society and in schools. So we need to definitely work on that first. And then I don't think we need to increase the time that we're in the classroom and tutoring, because kids are worn out. I know I've heard some people think that they're lazy, but I don't think so. I think they're tired, mentally tired, just tired. Families are tired. We've all gone through something together. They're not lazy. They cannot do more. We need to help them get in a good place so that they can do higher quality work. And we have high quality teaching, because like Mr. Morrow says, we have a teacher shortage in our state right now and a substitute shortage. So if you do miss school, there might not be anyone there for you to cover your class. So we need to make sure that we increase pay for teachers, give them good benefits, make schools safe, not just for students, of course for students also, but also for teachers, so it's a job they want to have. Make schools great, all schools great, so that we can then work on increasing the quality of education, smaller classes, higher quality, make sure we get rid of laws that are saying that we can't teach the truth to our students, which is ridiculous, is only going to hold them back, for example, and make sure we get rid of laws that are making it easier to ban books that are important for students as well.
Thank you so much. Just want to remind each one of our participants that due to the time frame for our forum tonight, we're going to ask that as we proceed, that we all endeavor to keep our responses a bit more concise, to try to get it within a 60-second to 90-second time frame, if you would. But we thank you so much for the detail. Thank you so much for the details that you are providing and sharing.
Can you give us a warning then? Because I'm sorry, I'm using my phone.
Absolutely. Yes, we'll do that. Thank you so much. At this point in the forum, my capable colleague, Mr. Patrick Kelsey, will take the next question.
Good, thank you. Let me get my little clock here ready to go. Okay, so all right. So you're all the specialists in this realm. For what I am understanding right now, that it is said that the governor is planning to fund fully K through 12 schools. However, part of the plan is coming through the American Rescue Plan Act monies, which is temporary. It's not going to be a recurring pool of money to pull from. And in addition, it also seems that Georgia is still not meeting the basic education standards for the minimum funding in the state of Georgia. Okay, so to that end then, how do you respond to this situation? And what would you do to establish in the long term that our children have what they need to succeed? And I'm going to start with Mr. Morrow, if I may ask you to respond. And I will give you just a little visual cue that you're coming to the end of your time.
All right, thank you for the question. Well, like you said, we would have to find a way to raise funds. So basically, that would have to go through legislation. So I would try to communicate with state senators, state representatives, and let them know that we need money for X, Y, Z to make sure that we can be successful. Like without money, no funding, there's no way that you're going to be successful, and the schools are going to be able to operate fully the way they could as far as to perform the standards. So I guess that would probably be the only thing that I could suggest as far as when it came to that. Meet with legislators and see if we can get more money to the schools, because see, every school receives anywhere from $6,000 to $7,000 per student. And that's one of the reasons why a lot of times when students do inappropriate things, the schools really don't want to kick them out, because if they kick them out, they would have to give that federal funding back. So basically, I would just have to try to find a way to get more federal, state, and local funding, or possibly even ask that a tax, maybe a 1 cent tax increase, be proposed to raise money. Maybe it might not be popular with some people, but it's drastic times, calls for drastic measures. And if we want to bring extra income in, and if parents really want to see the schools be successful, I don't think they would be upset with a 1 cent tax for education.
Very good. Thank you, Mr. Morrow. Second up, we'll ask Dr. Howard to respond to that question.
Thank you. From what I understand, the question's about our funding formula and what we can do to make that better. Generally speaking, I think it's good to acknowledge some things. And our state has fully funded public education twice in the last 20 years. I mean, we're talking about billions of dollars of money that has not been invested into our children over the last 20 years. So I'm not going to stand up and pat people on the back because we finally fully funded QBE, which is the funding formula, a funding formula that was developed in the 1980s, and leaders have been too scared to update it appropriately. We need leadership with a backbone that's going to say, hey, whether the governor is okay with it or not, I'm going to speak out about the fact that this needs to be upgraded soon. Imagine a cell phone from 1985. Imagine any technology, but this is our funding formula that we're going with right now. That's a problem. It does not account for the rising fuel costs, insurance costs, transportation costs. We have to do better. And you need a strong superintendent that can call a thing and not worry about hurting some lawmakers' feelings. And that's what we're going to do. Thank you.
Very good, Dr. Howard. Moving on to Ms. Hitchens. Would you please respond to that question?
Sure, thank you. So first of all, we don't actually have a money problem when it comes to schools. I don't know if you guys realize this, but we had, I think, almost $2.2 billion in surplus for the state of Georgia this year. And a lot of that is going to be just given back to taxpayers, which is, I think, probably a bad decision, especially when we have so many needs in our schools. I know we spend a lot of our budget on schools, but not enough. We definitely should increase the amount that we spend on schools and just keep doing what we're doing to get that $2 billion or more. I think it's like close to 2.2 billion this year, to be able to use that money for schools. We need to increase salaries, fix our schools that are in disrepair, make them healthy and safe for kids and teachers, and just use that money wisely. So it's all about prioritizing students and schools and teachers instead of businesses and anything else, really. We need to make sure that we look at students and teachers. But then, I mean, that's also good for business. If we have highly educated people coming out of our schools, that's good for business as well. So in the long run, it'll be good. We need to make sure we focus more of our resources that we have already on schools. Of course, I'm also fine with raising more, but the resources we have, we can send to schools. We don't have to give it back to taxpayers or do anything else with surplus money. We can use it to pay for schools and help them. And you're right, we do have the American Rescue, which is even more. It's like $4.9 billion that we got in American Rescue Plan funds, but that's meted out over a few years. And we're also kind of not using that as smart as we could, but we could be using that right away, get kids the services they need, make sure they actually are ready to learn again, help them fix up schools, help them, get everybody ready to be on the page to learn, which is they're still not after the pandemic right now. But we could use them for those kind of services now, and we're not. We don't have counselors. We don't have all of the mental health services that schools and teachers need. We don't have enough teachers. We haven't increased their pay. We need to be doing these things in a foundational way to be able to move forward. Sorry, I saw your hand. I'm done. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Last but not least, Ms. Searcy.
So I have to tell you, I have to go back to the question that we had previously because I'm a little frustrated with some of the answers that were given by some of my colleagues. Learning loss is one of the most significant issues facing public education in Georgia and in this country. And to suggest that we don't need to worry about learning loss is deeply troubling to me. As an educator, as a parent, as a policymaker. And while we need collaboration with lots of sectors, we have to be laser focused on making sure that we meet the most important need that we have, which is to provide every student in this state a high quality public education. When it comes to funding, as a former superintendent who has read allotment sheets, who has had to set budgets for schools, I would argue that yes, the funding formula needs to change, but not in the way that's been talked about today. I don't think we have a funding problem in our state, particularly when it comes to Metro Atlanta districts, as an example. Where we have funding issues are where there's not a local tax base to supplement what the state is doing in rural areas, as an example. And so what we need to do is make sure that we have equitable funding. We need to make sure that our rural areas, as an example, have access to broadband, and we can bring all of our schools up to the same level in terms of access to a high quality education for all of our students. I also believe that we've got to have more conversations about flexibility in funding. Again, as a superintendent, and these are very critical issues that we can't just talk about in platitudes. These are real issues that are faced by superintendents and education leaders every day, who have to make decisions about where they spend funds based on state restrictions. So we need to talk more about flexibility and being able to use resources based on the needs of specific schools and specific students.
Oh, very good. Thank you. I turn it back over to Tyrone. But before you get to your next question, Tyrone, let me just let the those watching through the webinar know that there is not going to be any questions taken from the public for this particular forum. There will be probably future forums to which you can ask the candidates questions, but it will not be during this webinar. Okay, Tyrone, back to you.
Yes, indeed. To each of the candidates, just as a point of disclosure, as a former educator, clinician, and administrator myself, my mind reflects on Lisa Delpit's book, Other People's Children, Other People's Children, which helps me segue into my next question. In the state of Georgia, students of color represent more than 60% of the enrollment within Georgia public schools. My question is, what must be done to expand and to accelerate racial diversity within the teaching and administrative ranks of Georgia public schools, specifically rural public schools. What would you, as the superintendent of schools for the state of Georgia, do to accelerate and to address that problem? And that question goes to Dr. Howard.
Thank you, Mr. Johnson. I appreciate that question because solutions can get lost when we talk in too many generalities. We have a teacher shortage, but that shortage looks different based on every corner of the state. With our campaign, we've been introducing an idea that folks are very excited about. Superintendents that I spoke to are excited, students, retired educators, and that's a high school pipeline for educators, specifically to recruit back to your hometown. So imagine you're in Wayne County, you're going to have support from the state, from the Department of Education in Georgia. You're going to have support to say, look, we're going to cultivate our future educators that are in high school in Wayne County. And we are going to help them not only to go to college, but support them while they're in college and help recruit them to get back to Wayne County and build those incentives and support systems there. I talked to HR folks in the top of various school districts, and people say something. They say something that's very similar that I found, and that's that people have an affinity for home. People have an affinity for home, so we're going to grow right where we are. We're going to build a teacher pipeline from our high schools to build that long-term pipeline of educators for the future. We're going to do this with our educators. We're going to do it with our firefighters, with our first responders. And I'm excited about the collaboration and the leadership to make this happen. Thank you.
Thank you for that answer. And I'll go a step further to say we sorely need it in Wayne County. So I'm hoping that everybody who's a part of this panel certainly has rural Georgia on his and her mind, because it's extremely important that we include the entire state in any plan dealing with education. Diversity, inclusion, equity. I can't say that enough. Diversion, inclusion, and equity needs to be a part of any state superintendent's plan to improving this state. So I will go now to Mr. Morrow. If you would, please take that question. Let us know what you would do to address, to expand and accelerate the overall issue of bringing more teachers and more administrators of color to Georgia public schools.
Thank you. Well, in order to expand and accelerate, one of the things I would do would encourage college graduates like to move to rural areas and possibly be able to pay their school loans off. You know, a lot of times in rural, because I'm from rural Arkansas, and many times kids are not exposed to certain things. Like I'm sure in certain rural parts of Georgia, you have schools that have no baseball team, no swim team, no golf team, things of that nature that you would find in the metro Atlanta. So a lot of times the kids in the rural areas are disadvantaged. So, and a lot of times you have teachers and coaches that will not take jobs in rural areas because the certain sport that they specialize in is not offered at that school. So we would have to find a way for all students in rural areas to have an opportunity to participate in the same exact sports and opportunities that the students have in the Atlanta metro area. And again, if I was a student coming out of college, and even though I might want to stay in Atlanta, if Wayne County was to offer me a job and they have the money to pay my student loans off, then I would be more receptive to moving to a rural area and do that besides staying in the metro Atlanta area. So those are the things that probably would motivate future teachers. In addition, I would try to create a magnet program within schools, within the high schools for teachers, a magnet program for teachers. That way they get the training that they need necessarily. So possibly when they get ready to go to college, they might possibly have credits towards education. So those are some of the things that I would try to do.
Thank you. Attorney Hitchens.
Thank you, Tyrone. Great question. The way I understood it might have been a little different than other folks. So I'll try to answer it the way I understand it, and you tell me if I'm wrong. But first, I wanted to say that just quickly to address the learning loss issue, don't think it's not important. I just think it was already an important issue. And the way to fix it is to equitably fund schools, not necessarily make kids do more because they're all tapped out already, basically. But we need to actually address the root of the problem, which is racism. And I think we all probably know that. Schools are funded the way they are mostly because of racism in Georgia. And we have to fight that before we can move past it. And that will start with redoing the funding formula to make sure that low-income schools have more money, because I want all kids to actually have an equitable and great education in Georgia. And so when we look at diversifying the teacher workforce, we need to start there to make sure that students get that good, great education that's equitable to everybody else across the state with appropriate funding to make sure that schools are low income have more to draw from because they're going to need more resources. But there's a problem with diversifying schools across the state, because I think what you were asking was how do we get more teachers of color, Black teachers in all schools across the state, not only in schools that are Black, because I think you're right. That's one way to make sure we do fight racism. Kids need to see people who are different from them, not just in books, which I think we shouldn't ban, of course, but in history, which also should not be banned and should be taught accurately, but in the people that they see in front of them. We need Black teachers, we need brown teachers, we need all teachers, gay teachers, we need all teachers that are different to be in classrooms so people it can be normalized. People will know this is a person who's in my community, not an other who lives somewhere else and is a different person. No, we're all human. We need to make sure we pay teachers more to do that kind of work. Just like Mr. Morrow said, we can forgive their loans. We can also do teacher pipeline programs. I have talked about that before. I think it's a great idea, but the problem is that won't help diversify teaching in other areas, because usually our areas have been only resegregated, that we've segregated more since we were forced basically in Georgia to desegregate schools. We've gone back to segregating more because of the funding formula in Georgia and the way that people decide to go to good schools versus other schools. So people will say to you, it's not about race, it's about sending my kid to a good school. Thank you, sir. But that is what it really is about. Is it time?
Yes.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
And that brings us to Ms. Cersei.
Thank you, Mr. Johnson. Excellent question. I believe you were asking specifically about diversity when it comes to administration in schools. And so I want to make sure that we answer the question. First and foremost, I think we've got to rethink how we look at our education systems when we talk about training and preparing educators, whether it's at the teacher level or the administrative level. As a state, we need to embrace the diversity of our state. Racially, politically, geographically, I don't think we are there in terms of our schools of education. I don't think that our administrators are being adequately prepared to enter into those leadership positions in schools where students are very diverse. So first, it's the Department of Education partnering with schools of education across the state, and to be much more intentional about what those leadership programs look like. I just finished just a few years ago my Master's of Education in Education Leadership at Kennesaw State. And so I'm very familiar with what's being taught, and it could use some updating. I also think number two, we've got to create leadership pipeline programs at the district level. Gwinnett is nationally known for its district leadership program, but not enough of those exist across the state. And so I would partner with districts to make sure they have funding and support and great curriculum to adequately prepare those leaders to come through the system. And then the final thing is, I think we ought to rethink what we require of administrators to become administrators in schools. We have some very rigid requirements in terms of certification and degrees. And I think those things are important, but we also know the research says that certification does not determine effectiveness. And so we've got to look at what are the things that are really necessary if we're really intentional and we really believe that diversity, inclusion, equity are important. How do we make sure that our programs are reflective of that in terms of acceptance, in terms of pipeline training, in terms of even where administrators are placed and where they're able to get roles?
Thank you all. Patrick, you take it from you.
Very much. Okay. All right. So much of the state legislative language talks about education and what scholarships money can be applied. In other words, it's been codified where the state is prioritizing its educational interests. Several references are to high demand jobs, often attributed to the STEM subjects. What is your position on prioritizing STEM subjects? And do you support adding arts to the priority subjects, leading to a true STEAM education? Also, what is your position on whether the emphasis should be placed on creativity compared to more technical skill sets? With that in mind, I would like to start with Ms. Hitchens.
Thank you. I want to make sure I got it all. But so yes, I do think that STEAM, including art, is important to make sure we cover all of those topics, but also don't think we should ever leave behind other important subjects like history, current events, and literature. I have my master's is in children's literature, so of course I definitely support children's literature as well. But we can use all those topics together and integrate them in a lot of ways. And I know I want to make sure I get the second part of your question. What was it again, sir? I'm sorry, I think I missed it.
Well, the second part of the question is, what's your position on whether the emphasis should be placed on creativity, or any emphasis should be placed on creativity in comparison to the more technical skill sets that the legislative body seems to want more?
I think we definitely need both. I mean, even when you're using a technical skill set, you have to use your creativity. Part of that is design, that can be creative. Art is also creative, which would add creativity back into STEM, make it STEAM, of course. But everything really is creative. When you're trying to use all of those fields at once, you can't just follow directions all the time. You are creating something. You might be doing it in a technical way, as in you're putting together a program, but you do still have to be creative to do that. And I think we should never, ever stop the flow of creativity, and we should definitely always encourage it. It is one way that kids are going to be resilient and be able to find any kind of job if they can be creative with what they know and what they can do, and always be ready to be flexible. And that's one thing creativity teaches them. So I think we need both. Of course, we need technical skills, especially for kids who don't want to go on to college. If they want to have a job when they graduate, I want schools to be able to do that in Georgia. Get them ready for a job. They get the skills for that job. They do an apprenticeship to get a good job that is in a labor, so it pays well and gives them all the benefits they need. If that's what they want to do, then I want them to have that, but also want to be able to be creative thinkers. Thank you.
Good, thank you. Ms. Searcy.
So I just want to say that I can see why the two of you were selected to moderate this conversation. These questions by far are some of the most thoughtful, and I know I speak for my whole group of candidates here, questions that we've gotten. So take that off of my time, please. Love this question. So my undergraduate degree is in both sociology and drama. My background is in performing arts, and so I have a great respect for the visual and performing arts, and I believe it's a great contributor to who I am today. And so I'm a strong believer that the arts ought to be included in all of our curriculum. And I think the reason that there was a focus, I was in the legislature at the time when we passed these laws on giving a supplement to math and science teachers, is because of the shortage that we've experienced. And so I think it was the right idea at that time. But as we think about what education looks like now, part of my platform is reimagining public education. And I think we have to create a system in which we celebrate the arts, creativity, I would add in that entrepreneurship, and creating a system that is a reflection of the young people that we serve. And so absolutely, we ought to have additional programs. In my world, the schools that I want to create, the system that I want to create as state school superintendent, is one that parents can choose all kinds of options based on the needs and interests of their children. And so whether that's a STEM school, a STEAM school, performing arts, in my case, I ran an all-girls schools. It was my dream job to be able to do STEAM and arts and all the things that we wanted to do. That to me is what public education should be about, having access to those incredible options to help mold and develop our young people into great citizens who will contribute, who are well-rounded and can do more than take tests.
Very good. Thank you so much. Mr. Morrow.
Thank you. Yes, I agree with the STEM programs. And I can tell you, when I taught United States history, I always encouraged creativity. Some students would write we might be discussing the Civil War or World War II. And I would allow my students either to write an essay or to do a drawing or maybe even to create a rap and give a presentation to the class. And they all were given an opportunity to receive a high grade. So yes, I encourage that. Also, as far as the technical, yeah, I've already stated that I believe that students should have an opportunity for those skills. At my school at Jonesboro High, we have cosmetology where young ladies learn how to do hair, do nails and things of that nature. And young men, they learn how to cut hair. And we also have carpentry, but there's no type of certificate or anything given to these students once they graduate. So I feel like once a student graduate and they've taken on these skills, they should have some type of apprenticeship license, but a lot of times it'll be blocked because a lot of people feel it would take money from the vocational schools, or the colleges or the two-year schools. So that's why a lot of times they don't want to issue a certificate to the high school students. But yes, I agree with everything you just said as far as the STEM programs, technical skills. Kids need to have opportunities to find themselves and figure out what they're good at so they can do the best that they can.
Very good. Thank you. Last but not least, Dr. Howard.
Thank you again for the question. I'm in full support of science, engineering, the arts. I really think that we have to continue expanding our concept of what it means to learn, what it means to collaborate, what it means to produce meaningful things and allow our brains to just take us to higher heights. That takes leadership. That takes a state superintendent who is going to value the valedictorian of a class, as well as the person coming out of a career pathway with multiple certifications. That means it takes a leadership that says, you know what, I think it's beautiful that you want to go to med school, but you also are artists and you do amazing work with canvas paint. You probably see some of the paintings in the background. My late brother was a physician and an artist. Too often we have a either or mentality when we can't have an and mentality. We focus on education without compassion, or we focus on compassion without excellence. So it has to be excellence and compassion. And I'm a pediatric dentist who also community organizes, who also is on the board of education, who also teaches Bible study at my church. We have to facilitate that, communicate that, let people know what's possible. Let our students know what is possible. And it takes leadership. And from what I hear from my colleagues, they also believe it takes collaboration. It takes putting the main thing, keeping the main thing, because it's hard to do any of this without literacy. So we have to make sure we have good foundation and then let our kids fly to multiple pathways, multiple off-ramps into society. So we are in Georgia, and we know that Georgia is huge when it comes to arts and film and all these things. Let the creativity flow. Let the technicalities flow. We can do it together.
Good. Thank you very much. Okay. All right, Tyrone, I think we've had a really good hour with some really fantastic candidates. How do you feel?
I feel pretty good about it. I'm going to give each one of them one more minute to wrap up for us. In the words of the great Dr. Benjamin Elijah Mays, the former president of Morehouse College, I want the candidates to understand that they will be given 1 minute, only 60 seconds in it. Forced upon them, can't refuse it, didn't seek it, didn't choose it. But it's up to them to use it. They must suffer if they lose it, give account if they abuse it. A tiny little minute, but eternity is in it. So for each of you, I want you to take a minute, 1 minute as we close out, to tell the citizens of Georgia, what is it about you that tells us that you are the best answer for Georgia in serving in the role as secretary or the superintendent of schools, of Georgia schools? What is it about you? So as you close out, share that with us. And we're going to start off with none other than Miss Cersei.
Thank you, Mr. Johnson, and to Mr. Kelsey for having us tonight. I will close with my favorite quote by Dr. Benjamin E. Mays, that every person is born into this world to do something distinctive and something unique. And if he or she doesn't do it, it will never be done. I am Cobb County's first African-American state representative. There ain't a soul on this panel who was born to do that but me. And I'm running for state school superintendent because I believe that I am being called to be our state school superintendent moving forward. You will not find a candidate more passionate, more prepared, more ready, more qualified to run our schools on day one. I don't have 10 or 15 years. I only have right now to get this right. And I believe in my heart of hearts when I wake up every single morning to work on improving educational outcomes for kids in our state and frankly around the country, that there's not a soul on this earth born to do what I've been called to do. And I believe that's to be the next state school superintendent. Thank you.
Thank you. Attorney Hitchens.
Thank you, sir. First of all, I'm ready to be the superintendent of schools. I was a teacher. I was an attorney doing education law, still am actually. I still have cases in front of the Department of Education, but I didn't talk to you a lot about my early childhood yet. So I'll do that next. I grew up in Whitfield County, Georgia, which is Northwest Georgia. So rural Georgia, you probably can hear it in my voice actually. I maybe didn't have to tell you, but that's where I grew up. I went to public schools there. But more than that, I basically grew up in the classrooms. If you hear my mom tell it, I was almost born in a middle school where she taught. Both my parents taught in Georgia. My mom in Whitfield County her whole career before retiring, and my dad in several schools and systems in Northwest Georgia until he also retired. I also have an aunt and uncle who taught in schools. My uncle was a principal for a very long time. The entire time I remember him anyway. He must have been a teacher before that, I guess, but he was a teacher and then a principal. I have a cousin that still teaches in Georgia. I have a lot of friends and family who still teach in Georgia. I'm very invested in the teacher community. I know that I've talked a lot about being a student advocate, which I definitely am. But additionally, I'm a teacher advocate. I have a lot of teachers on my advisory committee. In fact, some of them I went to college with, but I am ready to be a leader, the superintendent of schools. Thank you, Tyron, and everybody in, I know, this dual county meeting. Thank you, guys.
Thank you. Mr. Morrow.
Thank you very much. The reason I believe that I should be state superintendent of schools, I'm in the trenches, I'm on the front lines. There are 130,000 teachers in Georgia, and they all can relate to me. I know what they feel, I know what they're going through, I know what they want. Many times, good teachers are ran away because you have bad administrators that give bad evaluations, maybe because they want the teacher to stay or they want the teacher to go. It just depends on how the administrator feels. So I feel like in order for us to be successful, I'm going to try to find a way to retain teachers. It's hard to really raise the educational bar when you have 45 students in a class. You know, you can't even walk through the aisles without knocking stuff off the student's desk. My father fought in the Korean War. My grandfather fought in World War I. And I had an uncle killed in Vietnam. And one of the things that I was always told that as a soldier, you can't have anybody going to war with you if they haven't been in the trenches with you and they don't understand really what's going on in the trenches. So you got to have somebody that's been there and understand, even though I'm not an administrator, I know what teachers want and I know how they feel. Thank you.
Thank you. And finally, Dr. Howard.
Thank you. I'm a proud Benjamin Elijah Mays High School graduate. He is inspiring, a man of faith who exercised his faith by just loving people, loving God, and doing both in real life. That inspires me. That's what drives me. What you have seen out of me and folks that have seen the work that we've done over the last, decade or more, it's about excellence. It's about compassion. I'm a son of a country boy from Chunchula, Alabama, outside of Mobile. The son of a city girl from Atlanta and then DC, who just loved children and early childhood education. My dad loved working with his hands. And if he's gonna do something, he's gonna do it right. And at the end of the day, we need leadership. We need someone who has one special interest, no strings attached, and that's our children. And that's what you get from me, Dr. Jaha Howard, your next state school superintendent.
Again, on behalf of Jay Jones, our 1st Congressional District Chairman, Mr. Patrick Kelsey, and myself and all of the Democrats across the 1st Congressional District, we want to thank each and every one of you for your time today and for sharing with Georgians on today concerning your position on education. God bless you all and good day.
You all.
And before we log off, I thank y'all. I thank my brothers for doing such an excellent job. I didn't know if I was going to do a Carter G. Woodson or I was going to come up with something else because, you know, I'm not from Benjamin May's country, but I am ecstatic that everybody has taken the time to show up for this. It's very, very, very important. I say this statement on every single conversation. Julie will say it, Renee will say it. I'm not going to call names and everybody out there. South Georgia delivers elections, and I want that clear. Atlanta, Georgia is a big mix-up pot, but South Georgia delivers elections. And so it's very important that y'all make sure y'all presence come down here to South Georgia, and don't forget us little people down here, because little people have big things in store. And so with that, Tyrone's already closed us out, and I appreciate y'all for taking the time to be on this Zoom with us. Y'all, good luck on the campaign trails. We'll be talking to y'all later.
Thanks for having
me. Good
You
night.
all.
Bye,
Thank you all.
good night.
Excellent forum.
Have a
Thank
good
you,
night.
guys.
See y'all next time.
Yeah, tomorrow probably.